Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Links with Friends. Today is June 10th, and we're doing government and security for your start of your week. There's only one real government story to talk about, isn't there?
And it is tech-related.
And it's not nonsense, although it is nonsense.
It feels nonsense.
We're doing nonsense on a Monday.
It's high drama.
But I don't think most of you need us to tell you about this one because, you've definitely been under a rock if you don't know what's going on with this.
And this is from CNN.com. CNN! The Donald Trump presidency news, and it's just like...
It's a timeline.
It's a developing... Read the last line. The last line is really...
I don't know if this is the same one we looked at the other day. We've been following this on our internal chat for a while, but there was a particular timeline on CNN that was like, this is a developing drama. Not a developing story, a developing drama.
Not only are we in clown world, I am not sure that there are no non-clowns driving the car.
Yeah.
Sure is entertaining, though. And honestly, I don't think there's any analysis that we can give you here. I mean, it's...
if you have, somehow missed it, basically, Musk is probably going to get a lot of his subsidies taken away from Tesla. He got really angry, started kind of rage tweeting, and then Trump started rage tweeting back. And
apparently
then
we're not going back to the moon now.
Yeah, it's who knows? By the time you see this, there may be even more rage tweets. So,
but also like we really do try very hard to be apolitical, but this level of insanity with technology affects the entire conscious world.
I don't try to be apolitical. I don't care what you think.
I want to be unconscious.
I think collectively we end up being fairly reasonable and balanced. I think we all strive for a reasonableness that is clearly demonstrated as not being present in any of that.
Well, one thing you do want to strive for, in my opinion, is to not be super, super impulsive.
Trump's getting rid of his Tesla.
Read the rest of the headline. It's a little editorialized.
After Musk broke his heart. It seems like there's a lot of other people that are getting rid of their Tesla as well.
Yeah. Trump will be furious that someone indicated that he got his heart broken. Because he'd be like, no, I broke up with him.
But see, what's insane is the whole, the American... production of vehicles and the tariffs thing and all that is, it's like, oh, this is the only vehicle that's, made in America, which is not necessarily an unreasonable thing, but also the people that actually work there are suffering needlessly because...
Now, realistically, I would imagine that Trump has been inside that car one time, and that was the day they did the press release, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, who cares? But one of the interesting things about this week is, the stories are not in chronological order. I just order them basically what I think is the most exciting, and then I subgroup them. We'll do state-related government stuff after we do federal. But what we're going to hit a lot of are stories that no longer matter because no one has any idea what the impacts of this fallen bromance is going to be. And here's a perfect example.
Trump wants $1 billion for private sector-led Mars exploration, which is actually not a lot of money for Mars exploration. It looks like, Blue Origin is going to clean up after this whole spat or whatever. But $1 billion for private sector-led Mars exploration isn't going to do anything. It's just going to be research.
Interestingly, they seem to
Please give the money to NASA.
Well, no,
they're getting a 25% cut.
They're changing NASA's funding, and they seem to be moving money away from scientific experiments in space to just let's go there, right?
Who cares about what happens to the human body in space? Let's just go.
We're not looking to learn a particular thing. We're just going to the moon and we're going to Mars. That's what we're doing.
Now, Musk's plan was to send the Optimus robots there, which is maybe not terrible.
No, he wants to be king of Mars.
Well,
And this was something that felt like a lot of Musk influence, as well as the other $1 million donors. Is he going to perhaps backtrack on some of this now that he's feeling differently?
Deadline's headline is, Trump administration is going to rebrand Biden-era Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute. The Commerce Secretary says that the AI honors, we are not going to regulate it. So they've already preempted state laws for regulating AI. And they're going to not explicitly, you have stuff like this. Which, on the one hand, I mean, we've seen states get AI regulation wrong already a lot. But I think AI. I just don't. I don't think at the state or federal level we could get AI regulation correct either way.
It doesn't matter. The 10th Amendment describes what we do here. That should be above everything. And maybe there'd be some hype behind this because, I mean, certainly the clicks are up. So the problem here is another controversy because what was reported had a big update. And honestly, much like that Tesla, I don't think Trump is even aware this exists.
No.
Citation needed, which is a great website. Trump to launch branded crypto trading application, and then you read this. It was updated like just a couple days ago, or at least at the time that we were filming this. And you read this, and it's just like, yeah, he has no idea.
So the people, Magic Eden, who are running it, they've been putting out stuff like this.
He's not that fit.
And, stuff like this. And they actually said, like official Donald Trump and whatever. His sons who run his crypto thing, something LLC. No, that's different than Fight LLC. Anyway, there's this big spider web. But the Trump children are saying this is fake. And the other people are saying, no, we have official, representation. The one person who hasn't said anything about it is Donald Trump.
So it's not any different than any of the other grifts that we've seen the last 6 months?
I don't know.
It's almost like we had rules about, not using your office for this kind of thing for this very reason.
And maybe he doesn't know that he is doing that. Like, we don't know how involved he really is.
I think that's part of the plan, probably. I mean,
I didn't
plausible
know.
deniability, yeah.
It was, I don't remember it, but like, I read about stuff like this happening with Nixon, and Nixon would get all like bent out of shape, and they're like, sir, you can't do that. But no one is telling anybody that they can't do anything.
Well, that's an excellent lead in to the next story, because we have laws against some things, but no one is telling people that they're not allowed to break those laws.
ICE illegally gains informal access to nationwide license plate camera network. Once again, a level 1 prophecy comes true, which is if you build it, it's going to be abused.
So what's going on here? Well, ICE is not allowed to use this, but local law enforcement is. So someone pulled some Freedom of Information records and got some audits, and when you use Flock, there's a little thing that you got to fill out as to why you're using Flock. And there were a lot of memos that said ICE warrant, helping ICE assistance. So it seems like ICE is just going to locals and getting whatever they need from Flock, even though they can't do it themselves.
And if you think that now that this is in the open, it will stop, no, they will just learn not to put ICE in the memo of the thing.
There will be a memo saying, don't put that in the memo.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? They might actually remove that form entirely, that text field, because that's usually what they do when that kind of thing happens.
I swear I've seen stuff like when you submit the form, it's like, hey, I noticed that you put ICE in the comments. You might want to, do you want to rephrase that maybe? And then it won't let you submit if it contains the right keyword, which is the level of corruption and just like you're not horrified enough if you understand how these systems work.
Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, wouldn't the actual answer there be to not log all the license plates for people who are innocent of crimes? Well, no, we would not be moving in that direction. We would be moving decidedly in the opposite direction.
OpenAI has slammed a court order to save all ChatGPT logs, including deleted chats. Now, the disturbing thing here is that, like, on the technical blog, they said that for the API interface, they don't even log that because they don't really see a lot of value in it, they say.
That's not true.
But now they have to log everything.
So this is fallout from the copyright court case. So the copyright people, the plaintiffs, have said that they believe the logs will reveal something. And so the court just blanket said, keep everything.
What they think is going to happen is that when somebody asks, hey, what was in that New York Times article, it will regurgitate the whole article, and the logs will show that. But it's a really weird thing to compel a company to do when what they've shown is that it doesn't do that so far.
On the other hand, the prompts are a never-ending source of fresh human data.
Yeah.
So the idea that they're not using that,
Yeah.
I don't believe that at all.
At least in the programming problems, it seems like when I've told it, like, that is wrong, but here is the thing to fix it, most of the time I get the little memory updated thing, and when I have a similar problem later, it gets it right.
And it thanks me. Yeah.
Well, that might just be like,
And I do have that human need, like when
validation.
It gets it. No, when I get it wrong, or when it gets it wrong, and I find the right answer, I'll tell it. I'll be like, "Hey, you got it wrong," and it's like, "Oh, thank you."
Could you just lie? Can you just tell it, "No, you got it wrong," and then give it the wrong answer?
Well, but it's got a memory of the project, so I would be poisoning my own well.
And
just to spite the robot.
Yeah.
It does seem weird though. There is something interesting in like the context window, because it'll forget the context window of what it's working on. But if I tell it like no or yes enough times, it'll like almost have enough context to deal with the thing. So it's really interesting.
You hear rustling in the bushes.
That was a very short. Yeah. It was that. That's exactly. I now have the vocabulary to describe what was happening there.
I've lost the thread, so we're just going to make up a new plot thread.
Yeah, it does that a lot, which still. Now, we did have a Supreme Court win, I guess. It depends on what side you're on here. But these things like New York's poor people internet that the ISPs wanted to get rid of, that went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court decided no, states can have their special programs if they want. And so the ISPs quietly gave up and admitted defeat. Of course I'm kidding.
After the Supreme Court loss, ISPs asked the Trump administration to block state affordability laws. And you should check the court transcripts on this too, because there's some discovery there. If you look at in those court cases, it's like even at $20 a month, the ISP is making 7,000% over gross margin. Like your other costs to
it's
provide
not enough. They need more. Line must go up.
Yeah.
It's another 10th Amendment issue. Shouldn't even be a debate. And we have artificial intelligence everywhere. We're not going to regulate it. We're just going to run wild with it. Now, we learned that Klarna may have regretted their full throttle run into it. And now we're learning that the government might be hitting some similar speed bumps.
FDA rushed out agency-wide AI tool. It's not going well. Here's a fun experiment you can do at home. I asked ChatGPT to tell me about lead in the water, and then I just sort of browbeat it. And it was like, well, you could use it as a sweetener.
That's the biggest problem with AI, at least commercial level AI, is that you can just bully it into anything.
Yeah.
It'll only fight back when it's got those hard-coded, like the Tiananmen Square things. That's the only thing it'll fight back about.
Oh man, I can't wait for the article about that we have. We have an amazing article about some AI alignment with regard to that later in the program. It's going to be amazing, or on Friday probably in the nonsense section,
or the AI section,
or the AI
probably
section.
Maybe a mix, maybe a transitionary story into the nonsense section.
3 apples, 1 banana.
So this was Elsa, who is a version of Claude with like extreme training on the FDA internal documentation. And she tends to make up stuff about drugs.
Mm.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's just what the Sacklers need.
Also, you think Disney's a little upset about that? Did they get a letter?
You think they own the name Elsa now? I mean, that kind of.
That's Disney.
I did think of the character.
That's Disney, right?
Yeah, the ice lady.
This article is I was like, oh, this headline is setting up for something, and it wasn't.
Well, it's just Apple is not giving up, but they're not gaining much ground either. It's going to stand for now.
9to5 Max headline is Epic Games. Apple's attempt to pause the App Store antitrust order has failed. And yet, Fortnite is still not in the App Store.
Weird.
Yeah.
At least I don't think it is. Engage
No,
below.
didn't they put it back? I think they finally got it, right?
Did they?
They got
It
approved.
changes every
Are you
week.
talking about when they did the EU and the US version?
Yeah.
Yeah, they put it back after that. I don't know if something has happened since then.
Oh, okay.
But basically, Apple was saying, while we appeal this, you shouldn't enforce. And the judge was like, it's going to take 10 years for this to play out. Are you insane? This is the same judge that held them in contempt or threatened to. Like, you really think you're going to get anything out of this judge?
Apple also responded to 9to5 Mac, which is just like Apple never responds to anybody. And they're just like, we're going to fight it. Don't worry. We're going to fight it tooth and nail with everything we got.
Tim Cook's horrible bad week.
And we got some new details on our new savings account that we have in the federal government.
U.S. government's new strategic reserve, billions in seized crypto.
So it's $20 billion worth of crypto, but they have not purchased anything. This is all just the seized asset forfeiture crypto from the scams and so forth.
Over under on the government actually keeping those encryption keys secret seems like it would be very low.
Hopefully they're offline.
They're going to accidentally show up in a procurement database. Don't worry.
20.9 billion, 20.4 of that is Bitcoin. So it's all Bitcoin, basically. They do have a smattering of other things. Although, I guess 0.5 billion would be, I would like to have.
Yeah, I could survive off that, I think.
And we've learned that Palantir is going to be a big part of the federal government, and they're going to be over that whole slurp everything into one big database and manage it with AI. Skynet, basically, is what they're going to make. And those headlines have been running, and some of the New York Times in particular, not really glowing in their coverage of it. And Palantir, as usual, does not tolerate dissidents.
Wired's headline is Palantir is going on the defense. They threatened to call the police on a Wired reporter and kicked out other journalists from a recent conference following reports of the data analytics firm's work with the Trump administration. Yeah, it turns out these reporters have the smoking gun on, wow, wouldn't it be, this seems controversial if American citizens knew about this. And Palantir's like, do what now? How did you find out about that?
Now, they did let them back into the conference eventually. Security did. But they were not allowed to go back to the Palantir booth. They were banned.
Who do you think was making that call? Was there some frenzied discussion among executives?
I think everybody at the Palantir. See, the way I understand it is that New York Times author isn't just New York Times. They do some other stuff too. And so their buddies were there. There was a group of them. And they were like, oh, you're with them? No, you all got to go. And there were some Substack people. So obviously, they probably have a little bit of control of the mainstream press. So they really don't want independent press.
Has there ever been a time in history where something like this was going on and it's like, oh yes, it makes sense that this is done under cover of darkness without public scrutiny?
Well, it depends on who you ask, right?
I mean, through the historical hindsight is 2020 lens, has that ever been a good idea?
How about the World War II Enigma? Could argue that, right? Although they did throw some lives away to keep that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask those people's parents, they'd probably say no.
This doesn't seem like this has the same
No, maybe not. I don't know. The stakes are pretty similar, maybe, right? I mean,
for the Wired journalists, maybe it's like, you did what? It's like, well, we had to murder some people, but
no, for us, for our lack of privacy, the death of privacy. I think that's pretty important. A little bit of good news. It seemed like this one maybe doesn't stack up quite as well as the Washington and what was the other one? New York. There's another state. Maybe it was Colorado.
I thought there were several northeastern states.
I didn't notice that this said anything about paired parts. Did you catch that or not? I think maybe paired parts not a part of this.
Texas Right to Repair bill passes, heads to the governor's desk. So it's poised to become the first state governed by Republicans with a law requiring manufacturers to make repair parts and info available. So most of the commentary online seems to suggest that this is all about professional repair. There was a last-ditch effort, something about waterproofing. It's like, oh, we have devices that are waterproof, and the waterproofing will be compromised by whatever. But for professional repairs, that doesn't hold water.
Just covered in deer fat once you're done.
Delicious and...
I have actually used beeswax as a conformal coating on circuits before. It worked out fine.
And California has an interesting ruling here. I will say that I have done this, but maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe for the greater good, we really should just be zero tolerance here. California
court says holding a phone for maps while driving is illegal.
Is it also illegal to hold a map while driving?
What if the map is a foldable screen? Where's the line?
There are some states that you can't even, the thing where you mount your phone to the dash and it just makes it where you can see your phone hands-free. There are some states that make that illegal. And the videos online when the Tesla, what was it, the Model Y or the Model 3? I think Model 3 first was released, police were pulling people over. You can't have a screen like that in the middle of your thing. And it's like, that's part of the car.
Do you want me to rip it out? Yeah.
There's a great video where a small town cop pulls a guy over in a Tesla like that. And he's like, you're not a cop. You don't get to have a computer. Because that was the thing he was touchy about, right? And the guy was like, it's just the car, and they go back and forth. And the cop is finally like, I don't have time for this.
You pulled me over.
You initiated this. But yeah, this was a $158 ticket
Good Lord.
That they escalated to this. So now we have case law. Can't hold your phone for any reason.
Thanks, San Francisco.
It's a bad day to be someone who has trouble with directions and can't listen to them.
But it's a good day to be young kids in Florida who are jonesing for a phone.
Florida ban on kids using social media is likely unconstitutional, a judge has ruled.
I mean, it's probably bad for them, but is using a phone worse for a 12-year-old than pizza rolls?
Probably not.
Coca-Cola?
Probably not.
Either way, it should be the parent, I guess.
Traditionally, although they are very bad at it sometimes. And here's something that we've not been hearing a whole lot about. China banned a laundry list of things that pretty much get produced. Basically, like 99% of the world's supply comes from them. And it's finally maybe shaking out in the supply chain.
China's rare earth restrictions halt the first auto industry production lines. Mostly in Europe, but some in the U.S. have trouble getting powerful magnets.
It's going to be a good time for used cars.
It's going to be a good time for anybody else making powerful magnets.
Oh, it's in this section. I guess it is government.
Yeah. And we have two interesting government leaks. In both cases, it seems to be instructional documents that got into the wrong place, and this is very embarrassing.
Leaked files reveal how China is using AI to erase the history of Tiananmen Square massacre. So look at you got to see the image on the left of the apples and the banana, and the image on the right, and the AI is like, oh, I don't know, like what you're suggesting with the apples and the banana.
And they've revealed that every prompt, basically, that goes into a Chinese phone goes through this system, and it's very sophisticated. They also talk about the censors themselves, who make very little money but go through insanely rigorous training, and they are expected to do up to 100 checks an hour.
Oof.
Yeah. So you can imagine they're heavy-handed, probably because they just don't have time not to be.
Yeah, if you just let something through and then you get in trouble for it.
It's hard for me to imagine that we have anything like that, given, what's out there about the history of the Unabomber and the United Fruit Company and the Iran-Contra affair. And, well, we could be here for an hour if we go through all the terrible, embarrassing things.
The current drama with Trump and Musk.
I'm sure that we won't find out all the drama until details, 20 years from now.
See, we have that information, though, but most people don't know about those things. So there's some control. Not total control, but...
It's weird.
Rather than shape the narrative, you just distract them with TikTok videos. Right? Maybe that's even better.
Distract them with technocrat versus president of the U.S. drama.
But China, if you believe the Chinese propaganda YouTube channels, they are facing some pretty serious economic downturn because of all this and some poor decisions they've made in the past. And it seems like maybe that's forcing them to try and give manufacturing a little bit more of an edge, even if it means loosening the noose a little bit.
China's Hainan offers global internet access to some to boost free trade port ambitions. So basically, you can get non-Great Firewall of China internet access here, but the article suggests that this will somehow open up this province to have tariff-free trade, but I really wasn't connecting the two.
Well, it's not their decision.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, oh, but this is going to be free trade because this is not China, is what it implies. And it's like...
But maybe the idea is we're going to give you access to the world so that you can sneak these products through other countries. And that's free trade. You do have to go on file and request this and be approved, and your workplace has to pay for your phone plan. So for sure, those censors are looking at your stuff first. But presumably, if you're only doing business, you'll be okay. Just be careful what the arrangement of the boxes are in the factory. Don't take a picture where there are 3 boxes with one slightly behind.
And a tinier box in the front.
I want to ask you about this picture of the padded envelope in front of the three cardboard boxes.
And you think like, wow, the Great Firewall, could it get any worse? Yeah, it can always get worse. And now we have learned how bad it can get.
TechSpot's article is pretty entertaining. In North Korea, your phone secretly takes screenshots every 5 minutes for government surveillance.
Here in the USA, it's Microsoft.
Interesting censorship of words here too. They wanted you to be very formal, and I think it's just because some South Korean slang. Remember Gangnam Style?
Yeah.
Appa, Gangnam Style. Appa means like uncle or big brother or something like that. That gets automatically retranslated, no matter what you do, to comrade.
Comrade Gangnam Style.
I'm guessing it's something like we use bro or man, right? Something
I would think, yeah.
So that has to be comrade.
I remember reading about that song, and I think Gangnam is like a really fancy neighborhood. It's
it's
kind of
like,
implying like you're really rich.
It's like Park Place.
Yeah.
All the rich people. So it's like rich style.
Yeah.
Bro rich style or something like that.
Roughly. Someone who's Korean can tell us why we're wrong about that translation, but...
And Apple is, they have not only been cracked open here in the States, but they've also been cracked open over in Europe, and the timer is running.
Apple has under 30 days to comply with EU rules or face daily fines. This is the rules to do with opening up the App Store. We have several of these articles, and they don't really do a good job of tracking if it's the App Store stuff or if it's the AirDrop stuff, because those are different but related.
Pretty sure this is App Store.
Yeah, this one's App Store. But Apple also has to open up AirDrop so that we have good AirDrop compatibility with Android, which is kind of exciting.
And they are, of course, appealing it and arguing against it and saying, no, you can't do this. And the EU is saying, no, 30 days or we start fining. And those are fairly beefy fines, too.
Oh my gosh, the iPhone is a computer that runs programs. No.
And boy, is this getting more and more familiar. They really are just piecemeal eliminating this from the face of the earth.
This adult website that you've heard of has withdrawn from France as age verification checks get too intrusive.
And not just that one. It turns out the same company owns a bunch of these.
Oh.
Which is weird. Because don't they all offer basically the same product?
Mm. A series of acquisitions, maybe.
Got to capture that industry, right? So yeah, they're saying that the whole identity on file thing is just too far, and they're not willing to go. Now, here's an interesting tidbit about this. France, behind the U.S., the number 2 consumer of this product.
Not sure that it's worth the... I guess everyone has decided that it's not worth the privacy considerations.
Well, that was the company themselves. They were like, yeah, we're just not willing to subject our users to this. I mean, realistically, they probably just don't want to implement it, right?
That's probably part of it. I wonder if their insurer has anything to do with it, because their insurer could look at it and be like, okay, for the, you are a relatively high-profile hacking target already, and if you had all of this kind of information, like...
You would skyrocket in terms of hacking potential?
Yeah, I mean, because like e-commerce sites haven't been allowed to save your credit card number since the last 10 years, but sometimes payment processors or payment providers are compromised, and then the library that does the credit card processing surreptitiously saves a copy of your credit card number, and people don't notice for months or weeks or years sometimes, and that can happen here.
And more other countries are just kind of saying the same thing. Like, well, you know what? The American companies, we don't like them anymore. We don't like the politics. We're tired of it, and we're just going to say no.
Danish cities dropped Microsoft over current U.S. administration policies, Trump policies, and financial concerns.
Were you afraid we'd get
I don't know.
Demonetized for saying Trump?
I was...
we've burned that bridge.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know. This article, it seems like the Danish are maybe overreacting a little bit, but because it's like, if our things turn south, then Microsoft could cut us off. But then I was thinking Greenland, and I was like, all right, yeah. Good thing.
Which Microsoft kind of did to Russia.
Yeah.
And so that's a valid concern, right? Because what are you going to do without them? They've now got all of your history.
This has got to be an open source win, right? Is the Danish country going to spend a bunch of money on software developers? Because that might be the rallying cry that we need. It's like, hey, we're tired of all this software chicanery. Let's get together and...
No one is spending money on software developers ever again. Well, that doesn't mean we're not getting new software, and Turkey is getting some hot new software.
Turkey's AI-powered protest crackdown, I would finish this headline, is a preview of our dystopian future. You should pay attention to what's happening in Turkey, because when more companies do this and it's scaled up and they get it more correct, because this is just sort of like ham-fisted arm flailing, it's going to be very bad for all of us.
So this is facial recognition, and cameras everywhere, which we've already got the cameras everywhere thing. I'm sure the facial recognition is in there. They're just not telling us. But they followed up with some protesters who went to a protest a while back.
Yeah.
And was it 2017?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, years later, knock, knock, knock at the door. Hey, we know it's you. You're coming with us.
Yeah.
And then they point out this whole court system where like they went in, and a lot of those people was like, look, I was just there. You've got the video. You showed me the video. I wasn't throwing any bricks or anything. No Molotovs. And they're like, okay, all of you can go with a fine. And then those people like went to a holding room, and then they came back and got them. And they're like, no, we've changed our mind. You will be prosecuted.
Yeah, and think about that, and then think about what's happening in America with like, hey, who are these randos in our neighborhood that are rounding up people that won't identify themselves?
They claim they're ICE. Who knows if they
like,
actually are?
Pardon me, sir. Can you identify yourself? And then a month later, or a week later, or 6 months later, they're like, we've identified you from the video, and it's just like, Jesus Christ.
And while most countries are going the way of just the fist, what's the Orwell thing? A boot stomping on your neck forever or something like that. Brazil is trying to do it a little bit differently, although I fear the result will be the same.
And world first, Brazilians will soon be able to sell their digital data. I think this is just plausible deniability. I think that the only reason this exists is it's like company X is like, oh, you sold us your data. It's like, no, I didn't.
So it's a digital wallet, and presumably when you get to one of the cookie screens or whatever, you will have some way to interface with that. And if you agree, you get something in your digital wallet.
Like a penny, not
That
even.
can't be much, right?
Yeah.
They didn't talk about numbers. At least I didn't notice that they did.
I thought this was like just disguise for identifying people online. It's like, oh, in order to...
You would have to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That feels like maybe a little bit of a Trojan horse. And OpenAI is looking to make friends outside the U.S. And if you want to build an energy-thirsty data center with no regard to human life, guess where a great place would be?
OpenAI and the UAE are in talks for a free ChatGPT Plus for all. Basically, the UAE is going to pay for ChatGPT Plus for all of its citizens because it's such a useful tool.
How do you think they'll authenticate that?
Probably IP address block. It's like, oh, you're from the UAE. Here you go.
VPN servers in the UAE become extremely valuable.
Yeah. Although I'm pretty sure they've already got a list of the VPN endpoint IPs. Thanks, Netflix.
And Australia has made a decision about ransomware, and I don't know about this one. I mean, there's a privacy issue here as well.
Australia becomes the first country to force disclosure of ransomware payments. Ransomware has, here, let me predict the 5 minutes later headline. Ransomware in Australia has ticked up sharply after ransomware people have a list of people that are willing to pay ransoms.
Yeah, that's another good point. The list of suckers. So we'll see how that plays out. And Apple, we have known this for a while, but this is kind of a lesser known thing. And Apple does their annual privacy, hey, here's what we had to give the government. And some people noticed this line in it.
Apple shares push data with governments and sparks privacy fears. So push data is like the little alerts that you get on your phone. Even though it's coming from a local application, potentially, it's not really. It's coming from the cloud. And there's a lot of data in those push notifications.
If nothing else, it's your unique identifier. And some of them don't encrypt, so whatever plain text, whatever alert you got from the app, someone could potentially read that. Someone in the government. And could subpoena that. So,
or use that as a basis for a warrant to get other stuff on your phone.
Yeah. Which is a weird one because you can't necessarily stop those. Those can be unsolicited. And the fakery from AI, a lot of people, I think most of our audience probably understand how deep that goes and how, you can't trust anything anymore. But it's not common knowledge yet, and people are falling for it.
Fake IT support calls hit 20 orgs, end in stolen Salesforce data and extortion, Google is warning. So basically, the phishing and support call stuff has gotten really good. So you can call tech support, and tech support is like, okay, this user is probably not the dumbest user I've ever talked to. Let me walk them through exactly what they need to do. And then all of a sudden the bad guys are in and escalating their access.
They would pretend to be Salesforce people, and they would send you to this little thing to log in with your Salesforce account. And then once you did that, they got you. And they would get through your two-factor as well by catching it, giving you the code over the phone, and you being like, "Oh yeah, that's the code."
One of the people said that they successfully convinced the support people that they had lost their two-factor and it needed to reset it.
It's a pretty basic one.
Oops.
And it's good to hear that this piece of trash is getting prosecuted. There's not enough of a punishment for this.
Romanian national 26 pleads guilty to swatting over 75 public officials, including a former U.S. president. They also had an accomplice that was 21 that's also going to get similar treatment.
There's a great quote in here where they were talking about, oh yeah, we're not on any side. They did Republicans and Democrats. So
just doing it for the chaos.
Yeah, nonpartisan scumbags. They haven't sentenced them yet. I hope they throw the book at them.
Also Romanian. You don't even go to this school. What do you...
I mean, that's probably the vast majority of who's attacking us, right? Well, listen, we don't have any industry in America, not even criminal online.
What is happening to American manufacturing?
And as this article points out, most of them are overseas, and we're used to seeing these silly spiders and bears and typhoons. Pandas. Yeah, they love bears. Yeah. I guess for the Russian ones. But we are going to fix all that, and now we're going to do it like we do other technology, I guess.
The Reuters headline is Forest Blizzard versus Fancy Bear. Cyber companies hope to untangle weird hacker nicknames.
The rest of technology is also named in very strange ways, so I don't know if that helps. But
this used to be a thing where the first security company to point out is like, oh, the Chinese have taken over the mobile phone network, and we've named the group blah, which is not actually the name.
Like celestial bodies. I agree with that. I like that. You should get to name it.
Well, there's going to be a standards body now. Much like we have CVE numbers, it's like this is the number of this vulnerability, so you can look it up later. We're going to have official names.
And the Chinese leak of the censorship documents was embarrassing, only to be eclipsed by this amazingly bad idea.
Massive security blunder. Russian nuclear site blueprints exposed in public procurement database. Why was it in a procurement database? Because they'd been doing some upgrades. And it's like, here's the plans. How much is it going to cost to have a team of contractors come in and build us another barracks over there? And it's like, well, I'll just save these plans to my thumb drive.
At least it wasn't War Thunder, right? It wasn't the War Thunder forums this time.
Did you see Russia has banned War Thunder? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh. I didn't see that, but I love every time there's a leak, it's always War Thunder.
They seized their money. They froze their. It's like oh, we're making. They just took the money.
Now, maybe the bigger problem here is that, yeah, they were doing some rebuilding, but guess who was doing it? German firms. And that's not legal.
Oh,
and
so they're in trouble.
Yeah, a lot of the German firms were like, we don't know who ultimately gets all these materials that we're shipping out, but we didn't think it was Russia. They also pointed out that assuming that this is... Like, if your nuclear bunker is something that you just cannot have anybody else knowing, they would have to rebuild it all, and they're throwing away billions of dollars. Right? How great would it be to get that decommissioned bunker for pennies? Although you might get bombed.
Yeah.
And, YouTube comments, for those of you who engage, thank you, but also be careful.
AI-powered OSINT tool profiles YouTube users, raising privacy concerns. YouTube helpfully collates all of your comments, and so this is useful for an AI tool to just look at everything you've ever posted, much like Reddit or anywhere else, and then based on what you've posted, can figure out where you live.
And there was a little too much metadata. Now, apparently YouTube did update to remove some of that because they were embarrassed by this, but still, your history, the things that you can say. You also have to think about that with LLMs, right?
Yeah.
Because they are very good at figuring out little details about you. I've had Claude say some things about my age or my generation. And I'll be like, wait a minute, Claude. How do you think you know how old I am? And it told me, and I was like,
You got to start sneaking in Gen Z slang.
Riz.
Lit.
I watched that GeoGuessr video where they were feeding the different AIs like it was GeoGuessr. It was, man. I mean, I never thought that predict the next token would be that good at that kind of thing.
Lit is not Gen Z.
Is it not?
We were using Lit in 2000 for sure.
You think?
There was a band called Lit, right? Or a song called Lit. It was a huge thing when I was in college.
What are some other Gen Z slang? mess up your YouTube algorithm and your profile by commenting Gen Z slang below.
But don't use slang in your Nintendo Switch 2 gaming.
Nintendo warns Switch 2 GameChat users, your chat is recorded. Great. Nintendo taking the oppressive.
You will be banned.
So
it's like what happened with Minecraft too.
There's a rolling buffer of, I think, 3 minutes. So if someone hits the flag on you, that's going to be stored locally. But if someone hits the flag on you, they're going to pull that 3 minutes and listen to whatever you said to determine whether or not.
Oh, but the real question is what if you get flagged when you're on, what is the, is it Animal Crossing, the island thing?
Yeah, Animal Crossing.
What if you arrange the things in your Animal Crossing where you've got one little thing with 3 big things behind it? And Nintendo's like, no, you can't do that.
Only one way to find out.
Fun times. Oh, yeah, the Switch 2's out, I guess. Who cares?
Do we have a story for that? Do we have a story for Switch 2?
I don't care. Do you care?
No.
Not really. I did see there was a story about, I guess, like the packaging was so thin and they had it screen side up that somebody like stapled something to the box, like an employee at a GameStop or something. And
they did it for all of the pre-orders.
Also, I saw a lot of people standing in line for pre-orders. They didn't ship those. You had to actually go get them, I think, in some cases.
I think so. Well, because one of our editors, I think, she got one. And I think she had to go pick it up.
I'm so disappointed.
Nah. You can go tell her. All right. We will see you guys in the next one.
I did enjoy that most of the buzz around Switch 2 is like, oh, look, there's GameCube games on the Switch 2, more than the new Switch 2 games, which is telling.
Not super exciting. Anyway, we will see you guys in the next one.